is provided in a public setting, is provided somewhere else, and how much of it is home. You know, one of the principal cost savings devices in the healthcare system is to send people home. It actually has a phrase in hospitals, quicker and sicker, with the notion that someone at home will be there to take care of them. You know, back when my daughter was born a generation ago, an ordinary healthy delivery merited for the mother 5 full days in the hospital, and C-section merited 10 full days in the hospital of somebody else to do nothing but take care of mama and baby. As we now know, an ordinary healthy delivery, if you're lucky, merits 24 hours in many parts of the world, in many parts of this country. So one of the consequences has been in terms of risk is that we've lost these additional contributions that make the family a more economically stable unit. The third one I just want to note was the one I noted about the differentiation, is that we have also created a much sharper differentiation between one-earner and two-earner households. So that turns out to have a real impact. Sometimes it's a family that has 2 potential earners, and one has decided to stay at home and one has decided to go into the workforce. But think about it in terms of single-parent households. I once got on an airplane and sat down next to someone who was reading my book. You know, it's like every academic's dream, right? I will tell you, it's your dream until it happens to you, because then you look down and think, so do you really look at this person and say, so what do you think? You know? And I thought, yeah, what's the worst that can happen? You know, this is what lifetime tenure does for you, you know? So the person hates it, I'll just say, yeah, you're right, and just move on. But it was very interesting. I was sitting next to a woman who had a professional job who was divorced. And she made the point. She said, I can get out there, I earn a good living, I get some money from child support. She said, for my 2 children. So the problem is I can't compete against a 2-income household. So for buying that same package of middle-class goods and services, she said, I just basically can't do it. That was a very interesting point. Okay, so that was my first point. Income composition shifted, and it has all kinds of implications for the family. Second point about what's changed, and this is one about savings in the United States. We've gone from a 1-income to a 2-income household, but notice what the savings line looks like. Back in 1973, same place where we started in this dip that we hit in, or flattening of male wages, the typical 1-income family was saving 10.5% of its income year over year. Think about that. They were taking 2-week vacations and saving 10% of their income on one salary. By the time we hit the late 2000s, now you can kind of see the low point in there, where we hit about 1.5% on the savings rate. It has only been in this recent recession that we've seen it jump back up, where we've seen families retrench on spending. A couple of points I just want to make about this is the shaded areas are recessions. And you notice that for all but the first one, all but the one in 73, every time we hit recession, savings rate goes up. And reason for that, people retrench on purchasing. And so when you retrench on purchasing, the way the savings rate is calculated means by definition the savings rate has gone up. And I just want to make sure everybody understands that savings rate. It's not that they go around and count how many dollars people have in passport savings or certificates of deposit or even stock. It's a calculated number, so that in effect what happens is we take GDP, we back out the, we take earnings in the United States, I should say, we take earnings in the United States, we back out taxes, we back out expenditures, and whatever's left over is what constitutes savings. And so these are average numbers instead of median numbers we've been using before. But the point is, we're back up during the recession, but even as much as we've gone up, and by the way, it looks like it's tilted back down a little bit, maybe this is a harbinger that the economy is recovering if our savings rate goes back down, that we've watched the savings rate drop over time. Okay, so that's my second one that I just want to note here as a marker, that the savings rate has declined. But if we think about what negative savings is, and that is debt, let's watch what's happened to debt. And I'm just going to superimpose it on savings. And I'm going to start out with credit card debt. Why credit card debt? Revolving debt. Because it's short-term, it's the most expensive, and it's the short-term debt. People make these commitments most of them with the anticipation they're going to pay them off fairly soon, although it certainly doesn't match the reality. And you notice that as savings came down, debt went up. You also notice something else, and that is the effect of the recession. That although debt had been on an upward trajectory, it starts flattening off a little bit in the 2000s. This is all as a percentage of disposable income. And it starts heading back down during the recession. Now, on the debt side, the heading down is for a couple of reasons. One, some people are paying off more of their debt. This is part of the retrenchment story. Part of it, too, though, is debts are written off, that is, as uncollectible. So when credit card companies have to write off $1 billion worth of debt because they say there's just no possibility we're ever going to get this, we're now 6 months out and these people haven't paid, it shows as a decline, obviously, in the outstanding amount of debt. So we're watching some changes in the most recent recession. Notwithstanding those changes, it's just interesting to look at best fit lines, just to kind of see how they do. I recognize how the lines converge more in the recession, but those are the best fit lines. That is, that savings went down, debt went up. Another way visually to take a look at that is the blue bars up here are savings. On the left is 1973, on the right is 2010. The red bars are debt, and you notice the difference in what the family profile looks like. When I say debt here, again, I'm just sticking with revolving debt. So how about mortgage debt, the other big form of family debt? What's happened there? Well, the good news is, I suppose, from a family's point of view, is home values grew a bunch. Did anyone actually think there was a housing bubble? Take a look at that sucker. So this is, again, remember, I think we're using inflation-adjusted dollars here. So 1973, how much housing value do we have in the United States? About $5.7 trillion. Notice it hits a peak in 2006 at about, for those of you in the back, if you can't see, it's about 25 trillion. It certainly has come back down to about 16.4 trillion by 2010, but even at 16.4 trillion, it's a heck of a lot of housing value relative to where we were a generation ago. Okay, so this should have at least made Americans richer, if not in terms of their ordinary income statement, at least on their balance sheet, because they've got this great asset. And the answer is no. What happened is here's the proportion of mortgage debt as a percentage of the value of homes. And so if we had just kept mortgage debt as a percentage the same, it'd be a flat line all the way across. But notice what this one means. What it means is that housing values went up, but mortgage debt went up even faster. Or to put the line the other way, if you want to look at it like that, that's the proportion of equity that Americans hold. That is, it kept going down even as the homes that Americans owned kept going up. Now, these numbers may surprise some people. I just want to point out how much equity Americans have in homes. You notice the number over 1973 is nearly 70%, 69.5% of the value of homes. I just want to remind you, when you're thinking about this, you've always got to look at homes over, as we're trying to do all the way through this kind of long arc, but also long arc of a lifetime. Many older Americans, in fact, for a long time, the overwhelming majority of older Americans own their own homes in full. And home ownership is one of those things that tends to go up as you get older until you get to the very end of your life, tends to go up and go up over time. Once people move into homes, they tend to stay in homes forever. And the long-term pattern had been people lived in their homes, they built up equity. Even first-time home buyers back in 1973, median first-time home buyer